Coming up, Russia moves troops into Ukraine, an arrest is made in connection to the murder of a SUNY POTSDAM student, and there are new NYC subway rules in effect. All this and more right now on PS News. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Benny NEZAJ.
And I'm Michael DEMARCO. Let's take a look at what's happening around the world.
Breaking news tonight. International leaders are slapping Russia with sanctions following a move sending shockwaves around the world. In an act of defiance, Russian President Vladimir Putin recognized parts of Ukraine as independent states and has ordered troops in. There's worries from Washington and beyond that this is just the start of a full-scale invasion. Isabel Rosales is in Washington with the international response and what could come next.
Alarm and outrage from world leaders.
This is the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine.
President Joe Biden following through on promises of more severe sanctions. 2 large Russian financial institutions sanctioned. Russia's government cut off from Western financing. The U.S. will also sanction Russian elites and send more troops to Baltic states to reinforce NATO.
If Russia goes further with this invasion, we stand prepared to go further as with sanctions.
Russian military vehicles spotted along the border with eastern Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin formally recognized 2 Russian-backed regions in Ukraine as independent states Monday, ordering his troops there in an alleged peacekeeping mission. The U.S. is refuting those claims.
He's setting up a rationale to go much further. This is a flagrant violation of international law and demands a firm response from the international community.
Swift condemnation from NATO allies.
Moscow has now moved from covert attempts to destabilize Ukraine to overt military action.
The United Kingdom freezing the assets of 5 Russian banks and 3 oligarchs. Russia's biggest gas customer, Germany, suspending progression of a key gas pipeline. The president says he believes there will be no war with Russia, cautioned his troops will be prepared. Diplomatic efforts continue, but prospects grow dimmer by the hour. In Washington, Isabel Rosales.
More international concern following Russia's recognition of the 2 breakaway regions. Russia has sent its soldiers into that territory on a peacekeeping mission. The international concern is that Russia is still intending to engage in a full invasion of Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg shared this sentiment earlier today.
Every indication is that Russia continues to plan for a full-scale attack on Ukraine. We see the ongoing military build-up. They promised to step back, but they had continued to step up. Forces are moving out of the camps and are in combat formations and ready to strike. And we see the ongoing provocations in Donbass and the different false flag operations where they try to create a pretext for an attack. And then, of course, we saw last night that further Russian troops moved into Donbass, into parts of Donetsk and Luhansk.
The escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to rattle investors and markets around the world. Christy Lou Stout reports from Hong Kong on the Asian markets.
Stocks across Asia tumbled on Tuesday after Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered troops into separatist pro-Moscow regions of eastern Ukraine. Now, shares here in the region ended in the red. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 fell 1.7%. Korea's Kospi lost 1.4%. The Shanghai Composite and Australia's S&P were both down 1%. And here in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng fell 2.7%, its biggest daily loss in 5 months. Concerns about more war. Tech sector restrictions also weighed on markets in China. Now, there is great uncertainty about the fate and future of Ukraine and beyond, and analysts say it does not bode well for the markets. Craig Earlham, senior market analyst of Wanda, says this in a research note, quote, "It feels like the situation can dramatically escalate at any moment, and that's going to keep investors on edge for now. We may well be on the brink of something terrible happening, and that's continuing to feed into the negativity in the markets," unquote. And Michael Every, he's the head of financial markets research at Rabobank, tells CNN this, quote, "The Russia situation is also worryingly linked to concurrent dynamics in Asia. In short, the global security, economic, and financial architecture is all crumbling. Such changes are not positive for markets," unquote. And sure enough, the crisis in Ukraine has driven up the price in gold as investors scramble to find safe haven. Christy Lou-Stout, CNN, Hong Kong.
The Supreme Court says it will not take up former President Trump's case challenging the disclosure of his White House documents. Tuesday's decision is a formal conclusion to Trump's unsuccessful bid to keep those records away from the House committee investigating the January 6 Capitol riots. The court previously rejected Trump's emergency request to block the National Archives from turning over the materials, as the court considered whether to take up the case. The documents Trump was trying to block in court are already in the hands of the committee investigating January 6th. Tuesday's order did not explain why the court was not taking up the case. The order means the lower court decisions approving the release of the documents will stand.
Now coming up, new details in the murder of a SUNY POTSDAM student and new NYC subway rules. All this and more coming up. Stay with us.
TG in one word to me means integrity.
It's responsibility. It's trust. Solidarity. Synergy. Home. These guys are my home.
Theta Gamma is welcoming.
In one word, TG means to me family.
I'm Vincent Perna, president of Theta Gamma. Here at Theta Gamma, we emphasize the importance of scholarship, leadership, and service. We strive to make ourselves better people as well as our community a better place.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at some news happening near you. We have more information about the murder of a SUNY POTSDAM student this past weekend. It was reported that Michael Snow has been charged with the student's murder, but Keith Benman has more critical details.
Police surround 250 Main Street in Messina Saturday night. Second-floor resident Richard Gordon said he could hear them at the door of an apartment downstairs.
The police announced that they were state police and that they had a search warrant and to open up.
The door to this apartment didn't open. Then it got loud.
It sounded like they were banging the door in, and then it sounded like a couple of flashbangs that went off. And it was a pretty scary thing. I mean,
police brought out 31-year-old Michael Snow. He was arraigned on a second-degree murder charge in the death of SUNY POTSDAM student Elizabeth Hall the day before. Police say she was shot multiple times on this street right near campus. Otherwise, they've said little.
This is still a relatively fresh incident. It just occurred, just a few days ago. So this is an ongoing investigation, and we're not going to do anything that could endanger that investigation.
Monday, state and DEC police searched for Snow's gun along the St. Regis West Branch at State Highway 11B. They've outlined the road as part of Snow's getaway. They haven't said what sort of gun they're looking for. I've been on this beat for 5 years, and I've never seen a police presence like I saw in Potsdam Friday night. And less than 24 hours later, the search for a suspect came to an end here in Messina. At the apartment building at 250 Main, Gordon said he knew Snow in passing.
He had been explaining to me how he had just gone through rehab and he was doing really good. And, I congratulated him for that, and I guess he went another way. I don't know.
Police continue to seek the public's help in identifying Snow as the driver of this vehicle. They say it went from Potsdam to Malone to Messina right after Hall was found fatally wounded.
New York City's new subway safety plan went into effect on Monday. It follows a weekend of violence on the rail system of the America's largest city. At least 6 stabbings or slashings have been reported by the NYPD since Friday. Now, the city is sending out hundreds of police officers and social workers to patrol the subways. CNN's Bryn Gingras has details.
Tonight, a zero-tolerance policy in New York City's transit system is in effect.
No more smoking, no more doing drugs, no more sleeping, no more doing barbecues on the subway system, no more just doing whatever you want. No, those days are over.
This as the city recorded an alarming 6 stabbings or slashings over the weekend in the subway system and 2 alleged assaults where NYPD officers recovered this, a hatchet they say was used in one attack.
Ever since the pandemic, there's been more mental health issues, and we see it a lot on the trains.
The string of underground attacks started Friday evening. A man was stabbed at a station near Columbia University after police say he asked someone to stop smoking. It happened just hours after city and state leaders announced a multi-layer plan to improve transit conditions.
I have one message for New Yorkers. We can and we will do better.
The 17-page safety plan begins with hundreds of NYPD officers canvassing stations and trains to enforce the rules of riding. They'll work as part of 30 response teams from several social service agencies who will address mental health needs and homelessness.
Our officers are going to physically ride the trains with these teams. We're going to support them. We're going to be at the end stations to help them when they take people off the train to get them the services they need.
The plan already facing resistance, and the mayor standing firm.
While the vast majority of the unhoused and mentally ill are not dangerous, but we have to be honest about the numbers of individuals who are dealing with mental health crises. They are dangerous to themselves and dangerous to New Yorkers.
We are very concerned that it overly relies on criminalization and policing strategies to address what is fundamentally a housing and mental health crisis.
The crackdown comes a month after the killing of Michelle Go, a 40-year-old woman who was pushed onto the Times Square tracks by a man police say was experiencing homelessness. Calls for reform were immediate.
Based on what's been going on lately in the subways, then I really think that's a good idea, because people need to feel safe.
The Subway Safety Initiative comes in the second phase of the city's plan to improve and modernize the more than century-old subway system. Ben Stiller is in the director's chair for a new streaming series with a dark sci-fi premise. Rick DeMigello reports.
Hello, my name is Mark S., and I have, of my own free accord, elected to undergo the procedure known as severance.
Adam Scott stars as an employee of an unusual corporate entity in Severance.
I give consent to sever my memories between my work life and my personal life.
It was really challenging. It was really fun. I mean, it feels like it might be like 2 different characters, but it's not really. Like my first instinct was I would like one of them to like have a mustache and a hat with a long feather in it, and then the other one to have something else. But Ben immediately said no to that.
Ben Stiller directed several episodes of the series.
The fun part of it is you get to dig deeper into these worlds and into the characters, and I think explore more specific and tangential things that I think are really, really fun to get into, that make it feel like a fuller experience when you watch a whole series.
Well, when I first read it, Ben sent it to me. I think they just sent me the first episode. And then I had 1,000 questions. What was the tone of this thing was my, question from the beginning. Because there's never really been anything like this.
I confer upon you the advanced role of department chief. Congratulations. A handshake is available upon request.
Thank you. May I have a handshake?
In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
Coming up, a look into how a man thrown overboard swims to save his life. Stay with us, folks.
I'm Jason Lynch. Let's take a look at some sports news.
A Connecticut high school made history this weekend, winning its first ever state title in wrestling, and a big part of the team's success, a sophomore, who doctors said would likely never be able to play a sport. Mac McFarland has that story.
Memory that will be etched in his mind forever.
It feels amazing. I've been dreaming this my whole life.
Over the weekend, the Branford High sophomore ended up winning the Class M state championship at 170 pounds. In fact, as the #1 seed in his weight class, he was one of 4 Hornets to come in first, helping Branford win its first ever wrestling state title. And how he got here is truly amazing.
I'm 90% blind in my left eye.
It's a story not many saw coming, except for Cole, determined to not let a disability get in his way.
I'm pretty much used to it since I was like little.
16 years ago during his birth, Cole was left blind in his left eye.
When Cole was born, he was born via forceps and they split his cornea with the left eye.
As a baby, his parents traveled around the country looking to find answers, with Mom Michelle saying a number of doctors even told her to never put him in sports, saying doing so would only hurt his self-esteem.
This is like everything that we've ever worked for. We never mentioned his disability. We put him in all sports and he's just succeeded and proved many doctors and many peers wrong. So this is amazing for the family.
But Cole and his family didn't listen to those doctors, getting him involved in all types of sports from a young age.
I started jiu-jitsu at my uncle's school in North Haven when I was 4.
Leading to his true love, wrestling.
It's pretty much, it's life. It's amazing.
But it's not easy. Cole's family created a special headgear with goggles sewn into them to keep him safe on the mat.
This is his way of doing. Without these, he cannot, because if he gets poked or scratched in his good eye, then he will be totally legally blind.
And through hard work, determination, and drive, he never held back on his dreams. His record this year, 30 wins and just 4 losses to go along with both a conference and Class M championship.
Yeah.
Proving it's not easy to beat a person who never gives up. And that goes for not just on the mat, but also in life.
I would just say, do whatever your mind tells you to do, and also believe in yourself and believe in your coaches and parents, and whatever you want to do, you can accomplish it.
The season isn't over for Cole yet. He qualified for the State Open, which takes place this Friday and Saturday. Cole says his goal is to come in the top 5. U.S. Soccer and the U.S. Women's National Team finally score a goal on their long-standing dispute over foul play. According to a joint statement, the agreement is contingent on the new collective bargaining agreement. Part of this deal calls for the U.S. Soccer to pay $22 million included in the case. Another $2 million will be placed into an account to support the players' post-career aspirations and charitable efforts for girls, women's, and soccer. Going forward, the men's and women's national teams will receive a foul rate of pay for matches and tournaments. This financial battle has been pending since March 2019. Amazing tales of overcoming adversity, one in the middle of the sea, the other in the middle of the rain. Jeremy Roth has today's take at Look at This.
An incredible story of survival unfolded in the cold night waters off California's coast when a fisherman thrown from his boat was forced to swim for his life for hours on end.
I've literally thought about it 100 million times, like, what if I fell off my boat and the boat was in gear?
Fisherman Scott Thompson says that's literally what happened after he fell overboard in the Santa Barbara Channel. Alone in the water, miles from the coast, Thompson spotted an illuminated oil derrick in the distance.
And I just had to keep telling myself, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do this.
He swam for roughly 5 hours to the derrick, nearly 3 miles away. Maritime Captain Carson Shevitz later recovered Thompson's boat.
I could only imagine what he was going through that night.
Thompson said it was thoughts of his wife and kids and the company of a harbor seal that swam alongside him that gave him hope and the will to survive.
I just looked up at the sky and I was like, God, will you please just take care of my family? And then the next thing I know, there I am at the oil derrick.
Victory in the face of adversity. That was the goal realized by this amazing high school athlete, born without a right leg, missing most of his left leg, and with just one finger on his right hand. Adonis Lattimore has been wrestling since he was 7 and just won Virginia's Class 6 state championship at 106 pounds. His parents say through the ups and the downs, they always knew their son would make an impact.
To see it all come together in that one moment is priceless.
You can accomplish anything if you put your mind to it. Just take one step at a time.
For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
That's all I got for sports. Back to the desk with Mike and Benny.
Thank you, Jason. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
To stay up to date with PS News and PSTV programming, be sure to follow Plattsburgh State TV on all social media platforms.
Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night, Plattsburgh.